you. No idea there'd be other Jacksonites here. To people who had lived in Mississippi forever. When I was 2, we moved to LaPlace, Louisiana, which is right outside of New Orleans, about 20 minutes outside. And while I was there, I started kindergarten. And the way you do kindergarten in LaPlace is you do half the day in English, and then you do the second half the day in French, taught by native French speakers, Cajuns. And then we moved when I was 6 to Springfield, Missouri, which is in the southwest part of the state. It's not, thank you, it's not the capital, nor is it the home of the Simpsons. It is, however, about this close to Arkansas. Nobody there likes to talk about that, but you're about 30 minutes from Arkansas. So by 3rd or 4th grade, my accent was sitting at the intersection of Foghorn Leghorn from Saturday morning cartoons, Justin Wilson, the French chef, who always was guaranteeing everything, and Julia Childs. And you may be thinking, like, could it be that bad? Like, how bad could a 3rd, 4th grader's accent be? And when I was in 4th grade, we were sitting in the reading circle, and we were reading Mark Twain, I think it was Huckleberry Finn. They were passing the book around, book comes to me, I read it, read a couple paragraphs, pretty decent reader, I hand it to the next kid, and somebody's like, well, no. Let him read it. It actually makes sense when he reads it. And it wasn't just the accent, it was word choice. I was always fixing to do something. I would reckon instead of guessing or supposing. And I wore breeches till 4th grade, 5th grade, then they became jeans. So, but it wasn't a big deal. Southwest Missouri, a lot of different people, a lot of different accents. I made it fine. Got into high school, was finishing high school, decided where to go to college. Worked out I was going to go to Ole Miss, which is in Mississippi, land of lots of thick accents, not a problem. At somewhat the last minute, I get recruited to play football at Yale, which is not in Mississippi, not the land of thick accents. And I end up going, and when I get there, I realize very quickly that there's 3 key differences between me and pretty much everybody else. So the first is I don't come from any money. Grandparents were farmers, like I said, I grew up in Mississippi. In Springfield, the second key difference was my educational background. So I was first generation college student, went to a public school in Missouri, I was recruited to play football. And most everybody else, multi-generational college students, multi-generational Ivy League people, for that matter, they came from private schools, they were valedictorians, they knew Greek, they knew Latin, etc. And then the third key difference, of course, was my accent. And the thing about my accent was, if you didn't know about key differences 1 and 2, the minute I started talking, you got a pretty good indication that differences 1 and 2 existed. So I couldn't do anything about 1 and 2. I obviously couldn't have come from more money or had a better educational background than I had. But my accent, I felt like that's something I could do something with. And I didn't consciously set out to do this. But I think somewhere in my head I decided I would get rid of my accent. And I lived with this guy my freshman year. Alex, he was from Hartford. His parents were very well educated. He spoke very clean, very pure English with no accent. And I think through the course of the year, I just subconsciously worked on sounding more like Alex and less like myself. And it worked. I don't remember doing it. There was a montage of this moment in my life. You wouldn't see me like making notes furiously and practicing. But I just sort of subconsciously went through this process and removed a lot of my accent. So by the time I graduated, it was pretty well gone. I moved to San Francisco, I met lots of people, and people were like, well, I can't really tell where you're from, but they certainly didn't say, oh, you must be from the South, because I can hear it. And so for years it was fine. I didn't think a whole lot about it. Occasionally I would say, well, I kind of stripped this piece of myself away when I shook my accent like I did. But it didn't really bother me, but it did some, I guess, now that I think about it. And I have lots of friends, like my friend at school from Long Island, he still sounds like he's from Long Island. A guy from Boston still sounds like he's from Boston, even though they've left their hometowns for years. And it wasn't until a few years ago, I was on the phone at work, trying to help this woman. She was trying to move money around, and she stops me and says, are you from Louisiana? I'm like, no, I'm not from Louisiana. I did do French kindergarten for like a hot second there, but not really from there. And she's like, well, you said something, and it made me think of this guy I used to date, and he was from New Orleans, and you sounded just like him. And it occurred to me, it's probably still in there somewhere. It's not something I guess you can completely get rid of. And it was a bit of a turning point for me because I was like, I think I'll be a little more open to this and try to not necessarily go back and recapture my accent, but just be a little more forgiving about who I am and where I'm from. And the funny thing is now, so I'm trying to rework some of it in, right? So some of it's word choice. So I think I'm the only guy at work who addresses emails dear y'all. More than 7 or 8 people are folks to me. Any container, no matter how big or small, is a bucket. And I'm working on this with my kids too, who are here, and they're from Philly, and as much as it hurts me sometimes to hear a small child say water ice, I do embrace it. It's where they're from, and I feel like, I don't want them to feel like that's anything you should ever be ashamed about or feel bad about or try to change about yourself as you go through life. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. This is actually cheaper than therapy, so you'll probably hear more about it as time goes on. But what I will say is thanks, y'all. And folks, when you're leaving, make sure you put your trash in the bucket outside.